First 6 months, I hated the job. Learning this new language was something I found incredibly challenging. I'm incredibly proud of being a recruiter.
Today we're joined by Matthew Munson, a Managing Director, New South Wales for Talent Group.
In my previous career, I made the mistake of going too fast, and I was suddenly a manager at 28. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know how to do any of this stuff. It's frustrating when you're young because you want everything immediately. You'll be more successful if you take your time.
Did you get any great bits of advice?
I need people with humility, not too big an ego that they won't take feedback. You have to cut out that type of toxicity. It's not worth the risk.
We're called Confessions of a Recruiter, right? Any confessions over your career that you've seen, heard of?
I was waiting for this question.
Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
Good stuff. I'm really excited about this one. I've had a look at your background. You've done some really, really impressive stuff. So I guess today, really want to learn about your journey, share some insights, and hopefully make it fun along the way. So I guess we just jump into it. And how did you get into recruitment? Let's go back to the beginning.
So I started my career in a different industry completely back in the UK, from Essex originally, moved up to London when I was 20, and I started off in the automotive sector, working for Volkswagen Audi, which was great. Did that through my 20s. Great job when you're in your 20s because you get a new car every 3 months, which I loved. And it was a good industry. The downside was you used to have to work weekends, which I hated. So at the end of 10 years, decided to come over here to do a bit of travelling for 6 months. Came over, got a camper van, travelled around Australia, did all that type of thing.
Oh yeah, the old classic
Trip, which was amazing. Got back to Sydney, decided to stay here for 6 months, and after 6 months, started to fall in love with the place. I thought it'd be good to look for a job. Just applied for loads of different things. Some friends of mine from the motor trade back in England had gone into recruitment and said it was quite a similar type of sector. I'd previously done a lot of corporate to corporate sales, working with HR a lot in the UK, so it's quite a natural move. So I applied for a few jobs and I got a phone call, went in, had the interview, and the rest is history, I guess.
Do you remember what the interview process was like? Was it pretty comprehensive?
It was actually really fast because back in those days, as I'm sure you know, there's a lot of places multi-stage, but this was just a one-off interview. So I met with a guy called Danny Moulding, who's now at Finexcel, it was a really straightforward interview. And by the time I got home, he was ringing me, offering me the job. So it was very fast, very fast.
We like that. As recruiters, you like fast processes.
Yeah.
You got into it, you were into software testing and that was your kind of space early on?
I had to take a bit of a step back because in the motor industry, I was basically a sales manager. I was running Wimbledon Audi before I came over here. So I had to go back and start sourcing. So I did that for 3 months while I was working out the sector. And then I got moved into a sales role. And just was recruiting anything I could get my hands on to start with in the tech space. It was so foreign to me. I had no idea about any of the terms they used.
Did you have like an affinity with that space? Did you kind of get it, understand it?
I've always been a bit of a geek.
Okay.
So I've always loved technology, but I didn't understand a lot of the terminology that was used once you actually get into the technology recruitment sector. That's very, very different. So it's a bit like learning a new language, to be honest. So it was pretty challenging to get my head around that. Lucky enough, I got some early wins under my belt and just built it from there and just built the plane as I flew it type of thing, just worked it out as I went. Luckily enough, there were some good people around me that I could listen to, so just listening to them on the phone, just copying what they were saying.
And this is what, 2005 or so?
2006
right?
It was, yeah.
Do you remember your first placement?
Very well, yeah. It's like it was yesterday. So it was a .NET developer into a company called Multiplex, who are now Brookfield. And he was actually there. He was a contractor. He was there for like 9 years. So still keeping in contact with him to this day. So good guy.
I vaguely remember mine. I remember the company, but I've lost a bit of the detail around it.
I think it's mainly because he was there for so long. Yeah. I remember his name so well, but I remember the moment I got the offer through. Yeah, it was huge.
What was the recruitment industry like, or at least the company you're working in back in those days? Have you seen much of a change in terms of how you operate day to day?
I was working quite a boutique agency. There's probably about 10 of us in the office, 12 of us maybe at a push, mainly expat English guys. We had some resourcing support, but we were all 360 really. It was just as LinkedIn was starting to come out, so I was a pretty early adopter of LinkedIn. I was like, guys, you've all got to get onto this. I think this is going to be great.
It would have been. I think LinkedIn came out in 2004.
Yeah, so it was just like nobody was using it in the agency I was in at the time. So got on board with that because up until that point, it was just all about your database. They had a good one. So it was, that's what you were selling in market. It was your database, whereas obviously that changed rapidly after that with LinkedIn coming out.
I was chatting to some people yesterday, and I even remember early days when I got into recruitment, which is not similar kind of era, but we didn't really go on the internet to find jobs. It was leads from candidates. It was going in newspapers. Was it kind of similar for yourself?
I mean, it was definitely, I mean, I think because we're in tech, most of the people you could find online. So we weren't really using papers or anything, thankfully. I missed that era just. But it was, I mean, it was probably a lot easier to pick up business. Technology at that stage was obviously booming. Everybody was hiring. There was a lot less structure in terms of internal teams and RPOs and so forth. You can negotiate better fees. So it was generally an easier time, I'd say, to be recruiting. So it was a good time to learn in that type of market, and it was a lot of fun. I just remember having huge amounts of fun at the time. And
I never tell people it was easier. I always say it was harder.
Really?
Back then. Yeah. No. Are there any parts of it that maybe you did find quite hard that you weren't ready for?
Oh, I mean, to be honest, the first 6 months I hated the job. I really hated it. I mean, like I say, learning this new language was something I found incredibly challenging. In my previous role, as I say, I'd been quite senior, I'd been successful, I knew the job back to front. So starting something new that I didn't understand was incredibly hard for my ego, having to start from scratch again. It took that first 6 months, like every day I was thinking, what the hell am I doing in this? This is not the right thing for me. I'm going to have to get out of this. After 6 months, it started to click and feel a bit better. But it was really tough getting my head around it that first 6 months.
What made you stay? Because I've chatted to a few people over the years, of course, and a lot of people bounce out in the first year because it's tough. What helped you stay?
I think it was just because I was interested in technology, and for me, this was a good way to work in the space without actually doing a technology role, because sales is something that I love too. So it was a good marriage. So I thought I'd stick it out. And second, I think I was just lucky enough to have some early success, and I got bitten by the bug. Once you've had some of the champagne and not the razor blades. Yeah, exactly. It's easier. Yeah.
And what did you take into recruitment, like from car sales, that you thought kind of helped you?
Like I say, I mean, I'd done that corporate piece, that's the business-to-business sales, which I'd really enjoyed, getting to work with other organisations I enjoyed. But I think the other thing is it's very similar in the fact it's a process. Selling a car, there's a very defined steps that you follow when you're selling a car. Recruitment's very similar to that. So I found that part very familiar, I guess. But I just really much enjoyed working in the corporate space. I mean, selling retail to the general public is not an easy thing to do, much harder than corporate sales. So I really lent into that part.
And when did you, I guess, transition from being an IC into a leadership role? And how did you find that transition? Well,
it was reasonably quick, to be honest. I mean, I think I'm just naturally that person in the office that's always looking to help people, offer advice, coach, whatever. I've always put other people first, I guess. That's always been my vibe. So very early on, I think it was only 2 years in, they made me a team lead within the office. I was also, I think, the top biller within that period of time, which helped, I think, with that promotion.
Yeah, tends to, doesn't it?
And then the team just steadily grew under me. So when I left, I was pretty much the 2IC within that organisation. It just organically happened, really. And I think that's generally how it should happen. If you want to get into management, is you have to start doing the job before it's offered to you, and start, offering help to other teams, coaching people, mentoring people. You do that off your own back, and then those types of opportunities tend to come to you.
And you went from managing a team of 5 or 6, I believe, was it?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
And then you went to like multi-office management.
Yeah. So I left Aristotle. So like I said, it was a bit of a boutique. Then I went to Mosaic. So Mosaic, an interesting entity at the time. So they're owned by Skilled, so massive blue collar recruiter, biggest Australian recruiter in Australia at that point, like a $2 billion company. And Mosaic was like a tech division that they'd bought a few years previously. It was very small. And so they brought me in. I went in there, followed somebody that I used to work with to come in there and build out their tech division there. It was quite challenging to do that because obviously they're a blue collar recruiter and you don't get any different to tech recruiting than blue collar. So it's almost the opposite. And so it was a build really. So I did that with Danny. He'd hired me at Aristotle and we grew it out and opened offices in Canberra, Melbourne, and in Brisbane.
In my past, I've managed multi-offices, and I always found it quite hard, in terms of being in the right place, being in front of people, around people. What are some of the challenges that you found from managing a good-sized team to suddenly well, not suddenly, but multi-offices, different types of environments?
For me, the hardest thing has always been the travel aspect of it, because the only way you can really do it is you obviously need to be there in front of those people, building the relationships, seeing how they're operating, assisting them, coaching them on a day-to-day basis, which you can't do remotely. So I had to do quite a significant amount of travel, which is very, very disruptive to your life. I think it's very hard to get into routines whilst you're doing that. So that's what I found was the biggest challenge, because I think that's the only way you can effectively do it. I think people that try and do it remotely, that's when you tend to come unstuck.
Look, recruiters, I'll give credit where it's due. Hayes, Robert Half, Randstad, Michael Page, these are great agencies, great training grounds. When you're new to recruitment, a brand like that gives you everything: structure, credibility, a room full of billers to learn from. But at some point, the training wheels have to come off, and I know what holds people back: the brand. The fear that without it, the phone stops getting answered, that the clients won't take the meeting, or that somehow the logo was doing more work than you were. Stop. It was never the brand, it was you. You built those relationships. You made those calls. You delivered results that kept clients coming back. The brand was just the building you worked in. And when you back yourself and start your own agency, something shifts. You set your own standards. Your brand looks the way you want it to look. You work with the clients you actually want to work with. You build a reputation on your terms. A legacy that has your name on it because you put it there. Not a desk, not a branch, not someone else's vision. And someday, your agency in the same breath as the names that once inspired you. That's not arrogance, that's ambition. And it starts with backing yourself. Click the link below and let's have a chat.
And in terms of leading teams, I'm sure you've been in environments where you've had to build teams versus inherit teams. What are some things that you always need to consider when you have a team and maybe performance isn't quite there, maybe culture's good? What are some things that maybe a new leader should be looking at when they're taking over a team?
I think initially it's taking the time to evaluate the situation, not making quick decisions once you go into a new team. Really getting to know each of the individuals, what their drivers are, what their history is, what their thoughts are on where they're going wrong, before you make any decisions. Because it's really important to build that trust piece. If you go in and you start trying to throw your weight around too soon, you'll just look like an idiot and just get pushed out. And I think also a lot of new managers come in thinking, all I have to do is tell people what to do and then they'll do what I say. And it doesn't work like that at all. You've really got to win people's trust and friendship almost, if you want them to start doing what you tell them to do. And then in terms of trying to get them to perform, I've always worked on the adage that, there's generally only three things that go wrong on anyone's desk. It's either activity, it's quality, or it's the target market that you're focused on. So that's what I would always look to analyse. Which one of those three things, or two, or all three of them, is going wrong, and then look to put a plan together to try and tackle those issues and put a plan in place for how they can turn it around.
Are there any decisions maybe that you made earlier in your career from a leadership perspective that you look back now and think, oh, I should have done that different? Any mistakes? any you'd be comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I think the first thing is that you've got to be prepared as a manager to make lots of mistakes, and that's absolutely fine. And every single day I'm improving as a manager, even after all this time. And you've got to be pretty humble about that, because nobody's the finished article when it comes to management, because everybody's different that you're managing, and everybody's situation changes day in, day out. But probably the biggest mistakes I've made would probably come down to people that I've probably given too long a chance to, that I should have pulled the trigger on sooner. I've always been someone that sees the best in people, and sometimes that's been a bit of an enemy of mine. I could have been a bit more ruthless, and given less time to people and brought other people in quicker.
I used to, not always, but I'd get challenged with when someone's a really high performer in terms of billings, and they're just not good culturally, or too much of a lone wolf. How have you managed situations like that in the past? Is there any kind of formula or insights that you...
I think it's really important. I've always had a bit of a no dickheads policy when hiring, and I've had to make some pretty tough decisions like that in the past, where I've had good performers that have just been toxic. And I think that is really dangerous when you're especially if you're trying to build a bigger agency. you have to cut out that type of toxicity early on. It's not worth the risk. And so that's what I've done. I've removed them. And then I've always, when I'm hiring, that's always really important to me. I'm always looking for people that have an ego, but not too big an ego that they won't take feedback. I need people with humility, basically, to work for me. That's what I find works. Because you have to work as a team in a larger agency, and that's not going to work if you've got people that want everything to be centered around them.
And you're running a team of about 40 or so right now?
Yeah, mid-30s, I think.
Mid-30s,
yeah.
And in the past, was it up to 80, I think, at one point?
Yeah, so when I was in my last job at Expand, I was managing across Australia and Singapore, Hong Kong, so there's about 80 all up.
I was going to say, it's a lot of people, and I'm assuming you've had to have a very strong leadership team to keep that
100%.
going. In those roles, how close do you stay to clients?
I mean, for me, it's that senior point of escalation. So you're there to maintain those senior relationships at the top of the organisation, and then you're entrusting the rest of the team to manage the mid to senior level. But yeah, I would always work at the exec level, I guess, to maintain those relationships and to come in for reviews and so forth. But for me, it's always really important that the person heading up the point is empowered to own that relationship. So I would never want to get too close to the account, because I think it's really important for success that somebody owns that account that's not me.
And in terms of, I guess, your own development, when you get to the pointy end of the triangle, you're near, at the top or very near the top, where do you go for advice or guidance or mentorship, or is this? Yeah,
no, it's a good question. I mean, I think that's probably the hardest thing for me as you get more senior, is it can become a bit lonely. There's less people to talk to about stuff. So yeah, I've been lucky. I've had some great mentors over the years. My current CEO is a great guide for me in my current role, but there's also a number of my peers. I mean, Talent's very lucky in the fact that its senior management team have all got similar levels of experience to me, if not lots more. So there's lots of people that I can bounce ideas off of. And then previously in my career, and again, I had Danny initially in my career as I was building, and then when I went to Expand, a guy called Ian Tyler was there. He was a great coach for me at that part of my career. So yeah, I've always had good people, and I think it's important to seek them out and also to listen to them and I think part of being a great manager is realising you don't have all the answers, and being open to listening to other people's point of view. I mean, I'm not always somebody that takes initial feedback brilliantly, but I'm somebody that'll think about it.
At least you're honest.
Yeah, but then I'll think about it for a couple of days and I'll go, well, actually, yeah, they were probably right.
Yeah. I always got taught that, you don't have to have all the ideas. You just need to ensure all the ideas are heard. Moving away from maybe yourself right now and talking about some of the accounts or businesses that you've looked after, you've gone beyond kind of traditional recruitment and a lot into RPOs and MSPs. Tell me a bit about that side of the industry, and how is it quite different? How do you lead those businesses?
I mean, I love that part of the business. I'm still very actively involved with that in my current business. But what I love about it, I guess, is that you get to become part of the organisation you're supporting. So, for example, I was Expand. Yahoo 7 was a key client of ours. I used to catch up the CEO and the CFO there on a regular basis. They'd be asking my opinion on strategies and ideas for how they can improve as a business. And, they really, I mean, we talk about trusted advisors in recruitment, but when you're working on RPO, MSP side, then you really are a trusted advisor. You feel part of the team. And so you get much, much more involved with the running of their organisation, much firmer understanding of how it works. And for me, I found that really exciting. It's one thing for working for a recruitment agency, but when you're working with these cool brands, it's kind of fun to see another aspect, I guess.
For recruiters who want to be involved more on that side, do you look for different traits in those people who you would have in an RPO side of the business versus traditional?
Yes, you do. I think agency recruiters make excellent internal recruiters. Well, particularly RPO recruiters. I think it's a nice hybrid between internal and agency. But I think it's important that you can't be. They're not as commercial, generally speaking. I mean, if you're somebody that's a $1 million biller, it's probably not for you. But if you're more of that mid-tier 400 to 600K type of biller, I think it's perfectly aligned. Because it's a different mindset when you're placing people in an RPO. You're placing colleagues. You're not making placements. So it's a mindset shift So you have to have that type of mentality. Less salesy, I guess, is the best way of putting it.
How do you start going about winning those kind of accounts? Because I think, you mentioned Yahoo 7. I think eBay was another one that I think I saw. Some big names out there. Is it a very different approach?
It is. I mean, those ones I inherited, so I can't take credit for those two. But I think you've got to have, if you want to win that type of business, you've got to have a compelling story to sell to those businesses. I mean, I was lucky at Expand and at Talent. We've always been like challenger brands to the big multinational corporates. Their approach to it is incredibly structured. They have a huge library of different products they can offer to these organisations. Which is great, but it's very almost anonymous type of service in some respects. It's the same wherever you go in the world. Whereas the approach we took, it was very personalised. It was all about the individuals that they were going to be getting. That's how we positioned it, and that we were going to come in and really change things for them and make things exciting for them, and really make their brands the best in market to get them the best people in market. It's very a lot higher level type of sales that you're doing, but you need to have a lot of belief to win those types of opportunities, because you are going up against some very large types of organisations with huge amounts of support and money behind them. So you have to put a lot of passion and effort into winning those.
And is that something you're looking at with Talent at the moment? Is that part of your business that is
100%? Yeah. So we're still very, very active in that market. I think we won RPO of the year last year with the COAR Awards, for example. So we're it's a very important part of our business that we're constantly looking to grow. I mean, I think there's a big segment of the market that's moved, particularly in New South Wales, to RPO and MSP. So it's a really important business stream that we maintain.
Let's talk a little bit about when you stepped into completely running the show. I guess the mindset it takes to now be looking over an entire business versus being in the business a little bit more. Was it quite a conscious decision to do that for you? Or was it like next role is the MD, there you go?
It's always been an evolution for me, to be honest, but it was something that I enjoyed moving into that type of position. I mean, I do to this day miss some of the hands-on stuff. I'm one of those weird recruiters that actually enjoyed the delivery piece. So I still quite enjoy recruiting the odd role here and there, just to keep my eye in. That's kind of fun. Still get excited. But yeah, I guess at an MD level, as I mentioned earlier, it's the first thing you have to get your head around is just the loneliness. You've got to make decisions without being able to bounce them off lots of different people. You've got to come up with the ideas yourself, which is challenging. Yeah, you can ask for advice from elsewhere, but you've got
buck stops with you.
Buck stops with you, yeah. And that can be quite challenging. Each day, what am I going to do today? It's up to you to structure that day, and that I think when you first start can be a bit confronting. But yeah, once you get into it, I think for me, it's always been to focus on the people, focus on the culture, and then focus on the strategy after that. I mean, if you do it in that order, I think things generally will go well for you.
I want to stay around that topic actually. So the people, the culture, and the strategy, 3 incredibly important pillars. When you talk about the people and you think focus on the people, can we dig into that? Is that talking about looking at capability? What aspects do you look at with the people firstly? Right people, right desks kind of thing?
Yeah, well, I think, it's a combination of things. I mean, for me, probably the first thing I look at is personality. As I mentioned earlier, like that humility piece is really important to me, but also huge amounts of drive and resilience. They're probably the 3 things that I look for most. I'm really passionate about diversity in my teams as well, like having lots of people from lots of different backgrounds. In the past, I've gone down the route of hiring people from similar backgrounds, and that can create very cliquey type of environments, which is when you get that toxicity. So I've found if you're hiring from more diverse backgrounds, that tends to happen less. I'm a huge believer in bringing your whole self to work. So I think it's really important that we get to know each other on a really good, strong personal level. That's how you kind of bond, and it's from that obviously the culture then starts to develop.
What do you enjoy the most about? I mean, it sounds like from how you're talking, you enjoy all aspects of what you do. It really does. But are there any things that really kind of lights your fire when it comes to being the MD of New South Wales?
It would always be the people. I truly love my team. I've got some lifelong friends that I've made across my career and where I'm working right now. That are incredibly important to me. So that would always be number one. More technically, from a job point of view, I don't think there's any better a feeling than going out and pitching for a big piece of business and winning it. That's pretty special. And just being part of a pursuit team of a large piece of business it is so much fun. I just enjoy the strategizing and the coming up and the putting the presentation together and going out and doing it on the day and the whole thing. It's it just really lights me up.
Anything that you don't enjoy? Any aspects of the job that you're like, if I could just take that out, it'd be...
I mean, it's the same with all recruiters. It's like ghosting candidates, like people that
changes.
don't, the bits, where people not being honest, dishonesty really winds me up. That the market not being more consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that would be good.
The way. And for anybody who's maybe listening, who's stepping into a role like that, or is aspiring for that, is there any kind of bits of advice that you would leave with them to think about before doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I think firstly, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. I think a lot of people look to move into management because they think it's the next step in their career, or because they think that's what they need to do, or they think they can earn more money, or that's not the reason to move into management. You need to want to move in because you enjoy helping people, supporting people, and watching other people succeed more than yourself. So that's number one to tick off. I mean, if you are that type of person, again, when you come in, don't think you've got all the answers. Come in, evaluate slowly, ask for lots of advice, but then remember it's your decision. So when you do make your decisions, you need to stick by them, and you need to be compelling in how you're positioning that with your team, and be consistent as well. I think that's another mistake people make is they're inconsistent, but not just with their directions with the team, but also the way they behave with their team. So it's really important to maintain that.
I kind of forgot to ask about it a couple of questions ago. We were talking about the people culture strategy. When you're the MD, you're obviously deciding where you go as a business. And, what key things do you look at when you're thinking, okay, we'll put more resources into this area, or we're going to go into a slightly different market? What kind of levers do you pull or research do you look at when you're making those kind of decisions?
I think, multiple. I mean, obviously, we've got a lot of technology available to us now to do research, which is useful. But I think there's nothing that beats, networking, speaking to others in market and candidates, peers, wherever you can really, and just try and listen to all the information you can, suck it all up. I'm thinking in more recent times, obviously, for me, it's more of a shift towards trying to chase higher value work. There's a lot of margin pressure on a lot of businesses right now, and so we need to evolve. We need to change as organisations if we're gonna maintain our profitability going forward. So I think we're currently in a period of transformation as a business, and I think any good agency that's worth its salt, it would be looking at doing the same thing.
Recruitment today, it's obviously quite different. There's obviously a lot of similarities. I mean, the fundamentals don't change, but if I'm a recruiter getting into tech recruitment, I'm a couple of years in, want to have a career like yours, want to be the MD at some point, what are some early things they need to be focused on?
I think it is... obviously, initially you need to establish a decent desk, clearly, and I think making sure you've got a good breadth of clients, a good portfolio of clients is what you need early on. So that needs to be the number one focus. And I think it's really important, obviously, not to be overly dependent on one client. So you need to have a good list of 10 to 15 clients where you've got really, really strong relationships across the board. If you do that and deliver well to them, then you'll build a successful desks. That's obviously tick
Start
one.
there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Number two is, as I say, I think it's important to look outside of what you're doing and what your little team may be doing, and look more broadly across the business. Look for opportunities where you can add value to help other people. Take a lead in terms of mentorship. Maybe volunteer to help out with training people as they're coming into the business. I think it's really important to work on your personal brand as well, as a big part of that, both internally and externally. Just have a real eye for that.
Staying on that personal brand piece, and you're saying the external thing, I'm conscious of this because I see a lot of recruiters pushing content. Is that the way you think you would be doing that, or is there other things you've seen that work?
I think it's about being yourself, right? I mean, I think there's some of the content that gets pushed out nowadays is so clearly AI generated. It's almost valueless now. So I think it's about authentic content, stuff that really expresses who you are, that's going to get you remembered. I mean, I think a big mistake we make is that we think our clients are sitting there scrolling through LinkedIn all day. I mean, recruiters scroll through LinkedIn. Nobody else does. So if you're going to have content on there, it needs to be eye-catching, and you need to stand out. They're the two key things you need to be looking to do.
When you were earlier in your career, did you get any great bits of advice, any kind of snippets that you continually pass on?
I've mentioned a few of them before, but just in terms of around feedback, feedback is a gift. Do with it what you want to do is something that always rings in my ears. Because I think, as I say, I think most people find it hard to take personal feedback on board. But it's so important to helping you develop as a person. But you don't have to listen to everything that you're told. You can choose. That's really important. Being yourself in your job, backing yourself. I think a lot of people try and do this job by putting on a corporate persona and trying to pretend to be somebody they're not. And maybe afraid of making personal connections with their teams. I personally don't think that's the way forward. I think it's okay to build personal relationships with people in your teams. I think that's how you'll get a lot more trust, and you'll get people to run through walls for you if you have those real connections with them.
I think a mistake that I made in my career, if I'm looking at it, is I was very focused on progression. And I was always like, hey, if I'm not here by this time, I need to be doing something else. And really, I was always pushing my own agenda, probably a bit too much, if I'm completely honest. But I wanted to have a clear map of where I was going to go and when I was going to get there. What's your thoughts on somebody who's very focused on moving through? Or should they let it, again, organically happen? Do the right things, master your craft, and it will come.
100%, yeah. I mean, in my previous career, I made the mistake of going too fast, and I was suddenly a manager at 28. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I don't know how to do any of this stuff. I think, it's frustrating when you're young because you want everything immediately, but really the best advice is to take your time and to learn each part of your craft well before you move into that next step. Life's not as short as you think it is. You've got time to achieve everything you want to achieve multiple times over, and you'll be more successful if you take your time.
What about for yourself? Where to from here in your career and your life?
I'm extremely happy at Talent. I'm coming up to my 10th year, which I'm excited about. Yeah, my first ever long service leave. Okay. I'm excited about that. But yeah, I mean, Talent's a great business that's been growing ever since I started. So it's been a great organisation to get into because it's just grown along with me.
I've heard very positive things. You guys are making some good noise out there.
Yeah, no, we've been going really well. I mean, for one of the largest agencies, we're the only one that's been growing over the last few years, and most have been going backwards. So we're really wanting to make sure that continues, I guess. And I'm a key part of the exec team in there. So I'm really focused on taking us to the next level. As I said, we're going through a big transformation at the moment, looking to really be a lot more effective at cross-selling and utilising our other brands. So that's a big focus. So I think that's a 5-year project in itself. So that's where my head is right now.
Still clearly got the love for it.
100%.
I guess we're called Confessions of a Recruiter, right? So I'd be remiss to not ask you any confessions over your career that you've seen, heard of.
I was waiting for this question. I mean, it is a challenging one to answer without lawyers present.
Yeah. We've had to cut a few over the last couple of days.
I bet you have, yeah. I mean, the best one I could think of that's kind of okay was I had a consultant working for me who had a very large night, and it later came to light he hadn't been to bed the night before. Okay. So he came into the office the next day looking a bit bedraggled. Let that fly. He turned up to work. That's the important thing. And then he said he had to go out for a client meeting. I'm like, okay, sure. He didn't come back for about 3 or 4 hours. And so when he came back, I'm like, mate, where have you been? You've been out for a very long time. He's like, I was at a client meeting. And I looked at him, and he had like this ring around his eyes. No,
a massage.
He'd gone for a massage and fallen asleep on the table.
Okay. I guess that's one of those things. If they're top billing, you'd be like, don't do it again. Yeah. I've never really shared my confessions. I had one once where I think I was a manager at the time, and similar story, a consultant had come in and I was like, you come into this meeting with me. And I was like, I'm just going to put them through it. In this meeting, they fell asleep and started snoring in this meeting, and then woke up halfway through and was like, so how many people have you got in your team? Like that. And I said, right, different conversation to be had. But no, that's good. I think it's a bit of the industry. Those kind of things do happen. One thing, if there's one thing that's, we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot about leadership. We skimmed a lot of the surface. I mean, I could talk for hours about, if we go into the depth about your experience. But one thing that maybe people could take away from today, from what you've discussed.
The key thing with this industry, I think, is you've got to be passionate about it, and you've really got to believe in what you're doing adds value to the world. You know, I think a lot of recruiters are almost embarrassed about being a recruiter, or they see it as like a bad word. For me, I'm incredibly proud of being a recruiter, and I think that's the attitude you've got to have if you want to be successful.
And if people want to find you, if there's like some $1 million billers out there who are interested in talent, what's the best way to get hold of you?
LinkedIn's probably the best way. Yeah, not hard to get hold of me. All my contact details are on there.
Matthew, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for your insights, and been a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks, Ed.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.